You can paddle your own canoe, or you can take a ride and let somebody else paddle it for you. We are the problem. We, the people, are the problem. It's not these political hacks like Amy Klobuchar. They're a reflection of us. Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn, your host. Glad to be with you yet again. Coming to you on this Thursday night, June 12th, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time for episode number 212, Mirror Image. Mirror Image. I want to get right into the gist of this. But as I do, I'm going to say, and I'm going to say it many times during the broadcast tonight, if you happen to be watching on Royce White, his X page, where we have a very big audience, I want to thank those of you who on this past Tuesday night reposted the links at my request. We had a big upsurge in that, and that is very critical because we are building a political action community. If you're watching on YouTube, please repost the links. If you're watching on Royce's X, and I'm going to say this again in about a half hour because I know people show up downstream here. We are on YouTube, and we're on Rumble, and we're on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to consume your news and information. Generally am in the live chat on YouTube for the live premieres. And I do that because, to me, this is a political act, and I interact with people, and I build relationships with them, and I'm working on creating a community where we can be politically potent. Tonight, if you're watching me on YouTube, for example, I will not be in the live chat because guess what? This weekend is the Minnesota Republican Party State Central Committee meeting, and that has a 3-day, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday component. And this evening, I will be participating in some socializing with members of that community who have asked me to join them for dinner. How could I pass up an opportunity like that? Good morning, Tanner. How are you faring today?
Doing good. How about you?
Great. You look great.
Thanks.
You look like you're frosty and ready for action today.
I feel tired. So,
Yeah, something that we don't talk about a lot, the demand that we place on ourselves here at Free People Radio to try to keep up with good content and increasing the reach of this media company. It's a lot of work. And I'm just going to ask you if you could go to Free People Store, go to freepeopleradio.com, go to the store, and buy something from us. We need your support, and many of you are very committed to this Free People Radio effort. And when you show your appreciation for what you're doing by going to freepeopleradio.com and going to the store, boy, I'd like to see a bunch of orders come in tonight that we could fill tomorrow. If you need tires in the spring, it's TireGet.com. These things, I don't really do a good job of pitching it. We're going to do it more digitally in the future. But Free People Radio is supported by TireGet.com. We're going to talk about the tire business a little bit tonight because it's, of course, back in the news. But TireGet really has everything you need. There's 11 different brands there. There's tires that are so right priced there that when I see the size of the order, I go, what was that? And it's 4 tires, like Tanner's experience.
yeah.
4 tires, mounted and balanced, new valve stem, old tires disposed of, was it $500?
No, it's just shy of 400.
Just shy of 400.
Yeah.
See, that's why we need lots of orders, because we don't make a lot of profit when 4 tires is $400 with the service. So we're proud of that, and that's a service and a benefit for the participants in this community. So please repost the links, support the content because we're a family. And let me also say, after this State Central meeting, which I will report on next week, we are going to start to organize Zoom calls here in Minnesota for those of us that are going to get involved by participating in Caucus Counter-Attack. Caucus Counter-Attack. You can go to the roycewhite.us website, scroll down, you're going to find this module, fill out the information, and we are going to be in touch with you because we want to organize activists in the state to flood into the Republican Party's caucuses in 2026. We've got quite a while to work on this. And for 10 hours a year, just 10 hours, I used to say 6, but I'm going to put a little fudge factor in there because, you know, it never goes down perfect, right?
Maybe traffic's bad.
Exactly. Drive
Yeah.
time. You took the words right out of my mouth, young man. Drive time, you know, 10 hours a year, you can participate in changing the arc of history and how important that is. And I want to go back. Tonight's episode is called Mirror Image. And I don't know that I can articulate this adequately, but for those of us who have been in failing human relationships, when they fail, and particularly when it's um, a romantic relationship, and I am trying to keep everything together the best I can, and so is my partner. And we're playing every card in the deck, trying to keep things going. And then you get down to the last card and you look at each other right before the divorce and you realize you're looking in the mirror. Everything that person says and is doing, you're in the exact same place. And then it's separation time, mirror image. And that's a lot like our politics is right now. Our politics is so polarized. We're in a national community that is in the process of divorcing. And part of the problem we have, of course, is the hyperbolic rhetoric and the inability to discourse in a honest way. And those people that follow me on X, and you can follow me at Prof Penn Podcast on X or Professor Penn Podcast on Getter. I wouldn't say I'm prolific because I'm not doing it to make money, but I'm constantly commenting when I have time to do so. And what I find out is there's a lot of people that are just not very neighborly. Uh, they, you know, I mean, it doesn't bother me. I mean, it's okay. I just think it's suboptimal. And what we need is to restore some reasonable discourse and reasonable debate, even among people that come from very different communities. And I've tried to set this up, and it doesn't happen, and that's cool. I mean, um, I had this thing with this Julius Hernandez, and I told him I'd debate him, and he's 40 years younger than me. He doesn't know anything about me. Where I come from, just so you know.
You're trying to
Yeah,
debate a guy that's my age?
yeah. Yeah, he's a Democrat socialist, I think, and he was riding me on X, and I said, "Let's get together and debate."
And he
Eh,
basically just said, "Nah."
well, no, he said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And I said, "Great." I said, "DM me." And he never did. Like I'm supposed to chase him. I would consider that when I hang around with somebody that's 25 years old,
Yeah.
they're lucky to hang around with me.
Thanks,
I mean,
David.
well, I mean, I, well, okay, you're 25 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, is there benefits from hanging around with me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't treat him any different than I treat you. I don't have to agree with people to enjoy being with them. And what these leftists don't understand is my parents were the original gangsters of communism in Minnesota, the OGs. I mean, my mother and father ran the deal for 40 years. They were they were the people that created the world you're living in. And you don't even know their names because that's politics. In politics, when you leave the field, the sands of time blow over you like bang, you're out of the game.
Yeah.
But when they were in the game, they ran the leftist program here in Minnesota. I mean, it wasn't just them, but they were at the head table, and their opinions mattered, and they changed things. So when I get together with leftists, it's not like I don't understand where they're coming from. In fact, what they believe, my parents thought it up 40 years ago. I heard it around the dinner table when I was 15 years old, man.
Yeah.
So, but mirror image is when you you melt down to the bottom of the relationship and you look in the mirror and you go, "Oh, this isn't gonna work anymore." And I'm bringing this up as mirror image because I made a big deal on the last podcast about this, uh, section in the big beautiful bill that reads, "No state or political subdivision thereof may enforce any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence models, artificial intelligence systems, or automated decision systems during the 10-year period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act." And my comment was, write your Congress people because we want to have rights as citizens in the states. And anytime we're going to preclude a political process, it's very suspicious to me.
I have a question about this though. I was
Yes,
thinking on this last night. So when it says regulating AI, I know like what you're meaning when you say that, but is there any chance that what they're meaning is they're trying to protect that we the people still have access to AI because DeepSeek had came out and a big like issue with that was it was open source. So then everybody had access to it.
this is what I mean about mirror image. You can see anything in this paragraph you want to, because let me give you another cut at it. What if California decides that they want to regulate free speech through AI? And the way these platforms work, if California makes a decision, they change the regulatory framework all over the world because it's that big of an entity.
Mm.
Like when Europe regulates AI or regulates the social platforms, they change them internationally. So I think you could also, besides saying that the people don't have control, the people don't have control. You understand? It's a mirror image. It's really going to depend on who's in power because it could be as simple as keep your hands off the money, you greedy states. That's ours.
But could it also be I'm just asking this so I actually understand it too. Could it be similar to they're trying to push regulations on guns and all that's done is made it harder for citizens to get guns? That's what I worry. Are the regulations that they're trying to stop from happening are the regulations that would stop the average Joe like me and you to have access to this powerful AI?
It's not written very clearly, is it?
No, no, now that like, I was
That's the
last night, I was sitting there thinking about that, and I was like, I don't wanna let it just be and then let the evil scientists make whatever AI they want, but if you regulate it, that's definitely a point that you could go, "The average McDonald's worker does not need access to this AI," you
exactly.
know?
It's
So,
that's why I call this episode mirror image. It's we've gotten down to the point where the scope and pace of technological change is beyond human comprehension. That's the point of AI.
yeah.
And how this is going to go down in the future is really going to be determined in large part by who's running the show. If we got a bunch of debauched, crazy, demoralized people that we keep electing, this isn't going to have a good outcome. If we suddenly go and get involved in the political process, become educated, and realize the future of our species, the future of our life, the future of our children's lives are dependent on how this very powerful technology gets implemented, over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. If, this is the criticality of the moment. This is why we're doing Free People Radio. This is why I support Royce White. Uh, there's no perfect politicians, but Royce is not going to sell out. It's just not in his DNA to sell out. So he has deficiencies like we all do. But, if we elect him to the Senate, he's not suddenly going to become a different person because every Senate seat gets $6.95 million dollars of lobbying money every year. This is the seduction of the process. If I had it my way, if I was made king for a day, there wouldn't be any money in politics. We don't need it anymore. We got digital communication. Like the campaigns could be limited to $100,000 for signs and hats.
Yeah.
And then the digital is free, and then just hold debates. I mean, when we would do that, if there was no lobby, now the Supreme Court ruled that this was free speech, and I understand that, and I'm not king. But every benefit has a cost, and the benefit of freedom has some very intense costs. And we're very good at analyzing benefits as human beings. We kind of suck at analyzing costs, unless, of course, you're an accountant. If you happen to be out there and you're watching me and you're a certified public accountant, you know that there's two sides to the ledger and they got to be related to each other. The average person doesn't. Do you realize every benefit has a cost?
Yeah. Yeah, when I was I have an amazing teacher that taught me most of my video skills at the very beginning. He was my history teacher as well. And he taught me the acronym TINSTOFL. There is no such thing as a free lunch. And he taught me that in economics, but I have when that is I don't know, that's been my philosophy for everything. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So, to your point, every benefit has its cost.
And somebody's going to pay it in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah.
Like the AI. My thing with the I said I'm using it, uh, and I'll use it till they drag me away because I can get information that I would need a team of researchers that I can't afford. But the cost is like for me, like this phone for me is a hammer. I have no self image in here. I'm not attached to the social aspect of it. I know it's a surveillance device. I've been thinking about just if this doesn't work out, I'm going off the grid and I'm going out to the farm. I mean, I'm starting to have these fantasies
Yeah.
of just complete withdrawal because when this goes wrong, it's going to go wrong really quick and really powerfully. Because every time I ask it a question like how much money was spent on lobbying, it doesn't forget that I asked the question. So right now, there's a complete profile on me based on but I'm going to use it until, like I say, they drag me away. Well, I don't want to get drug away. That's why it's so important that we go to precinctstrategy.com, that we learn how to get into the political realm, that we actually participate in the political process. That precinctstrategy.com has everything you need to know to get into the game of politics. Now, Dan Schultz did this in reference to the Republican Party. And let me tell you how, and we're going to talk about this in just a few minutes about outflanking. The Republican Party of Minnesota and nationally, in every state, there's a battle. What is a Republican? What is a Republican? We don't know anymore because the category is changing. And I got a call from a political activist, and she said to me, "Guess what?" I go, "What?" The Republican Party wants to hold a softball game, put on a softball game. I said, "Why are you calling me?" She says, "It'll be rhinos versus patriots." So the party is trying to get what they call that's their word, patriots. They want the patriots and the rhinos to mix because human beings have this communal need. We generally, as a species, most of us avoid conflict. The idea is let's get everybody together and pretty soon we'll all be rhinos again. That's their plan. That's the plan. And the party, as we talked about in the last episode, is going to great lengths to appear to be patriotic when in fact it is not. And those people, I don't even think understand how un-American they really are. But we're not going to go down that road right now. I want to go down this road. And I'm going to tell you when I do this, I'm really doing this for myself because spending so much time working, I'm not praying like I want to. So you're going to get my sincere thanks in letting me do this with you. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating the light and the dark. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating me in your image. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for making me an American. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for making me free. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for healing the blind. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for feeding the people. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for releasing the bound. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for raising up the downtrodden. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating the heavens and earth. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for providing for all my needs. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for directing my path. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for my American courage. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for crowning America with glory. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for restoring strength to the weary. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for sending your Son to die on the cross that I might be saved. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Pardon me, my King, for I have willfully transgressed. For you pardon and forgive. Blessed are you, God, King of all worlds, who is gracious and ever willing to forgive. And for those that are new and come at this from an atheistic frame, or you haven't found faith yet, there's a way to pray. And I make the mistake myself because I have needs. Man, I'm struggling and I'm weary. And I just say to myself, oh, dear God, please. That's not the way we're taught to pray. It doesn't work that way. And it doesn't work that way in terms of the new physics. And there's a merger of faith and physics that we could all research to understand how close we are to understanding the unseen world. But it says in Scripture, whatsoever you wish for when you pray, believe that you have received it and you shall have it. And that's why this prayer is a prayer of thanksgiving. It's not, oh, let me yank on your skirts, Lord. Give me this, gimme, gimme, gimme. My name is Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy. That doesn't work. That's not how it works. There is a way it works. And when we pray and thank God for the community that we have, when we pray and we thank God for our American courage, when we thank God for being Americans, when we when we pray in a frame of thanksgiving, it's a very powerful state of mind. And what we have to do as American citizens is get our minds right. You've heard that, got to get your thinking right. Got to get our thinking right. And the act of praying right now is it's critical. And of course, that's exactly what, the New World Order, the post World War II Democrat liberal order is out to extinguish. Because from that frame of reference, there is no God and there's no reason to pray. I think Henry Ford said, think you can, think you can't. Either way, you're right. Could you please play number one?
НАТО создавалось
NATO
как
was created as an
инструмент
instrument
холодной
of the
войны
Cold War in the
в
fight against
борьбе
the
с
Soviet
Советским
Union
Союзом и
and the Warsaw
Варшавским
Pact,
договором, так называемым.
so
Сейчас ни для
called. Now
Варшавского
there is
договора,
neither
ни
the
Советского
Warsaw Pact
Союза
nor does
НАТО
the Soviet
существует.
Union
Возникает
exist,
вопрос,
but
а
NATO
зачем?
exists. So the
Ответ
question is
только один.
why? And the answer is only
Что бы
one.
там ни
No
говорили,
matter what
это
they
инструмент
say,
внешней политики
NATO
Соединенных
is an
Штатов.
instrument of the foreign policy of the United States. That's President Vladimir Putin of Russia from his street corner telling us from his perspective why does NATO exist? Because neither the Soviet Union exists nor the Warsaw Pact exists. So from his perspective, NATO exists as an instrument of we the people, our our foreign policy. My foreign policy? Mine? Let me tell you, I couldn't care less about what happens over there. It's not my business. Those Europeans like to fight with each other. They like to play the great game. And I'm going to say, let them fight. But get all of my relatives, all my American fellow citizens, all my money, all my material, get it out of there. And if those folks want to solve it and they're pissed at it, let them be pissed. I mean, I lost so many people. I'm not talking about in the Holocaust. I had so many family members went to war over the course of my lifetime and died in foreign wars of discretion because somebody went to Harvard, Princeton, and Yale and got caught up in this Atlanticist idea and this empire idea, this Pax Americana idea, which we've been trying to wake up from my entire life, and we're not waking up. We're not. Particularly in the Republican Party, where we have at least half the members that are all down with this. The Mark Levin crowd. They're everywhere. I mean, they show up, they want closed borders, they want a balanced budget, but they want a worldwide empire, and they're willing to go to war with Iran to protect Israel today. And Putin is saying that this is American foreign policy. Well, you know what? If we get involved in politics, there's nothing wrong with having a strong military to defend our country, as President Trump has presaged with the Golden Dome. Hey, go spend $2 trillion and protect Tanner and his daughter from the missiles that could rain down on Minnesota. I'd love that. Hey, feed the beast, man. Feed the beast. We got this beast out there. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Feed the beast. Okay, that's great. We got this huge military industrial complex. Feed it, but make it defensive, not offensive. You know that word offensive? See, there's a lot in that word offensive. It's offensive.
How so?
$2 trillion a year to deploy military all over the world, and we're the good guys. That's offensive.
Yeah.
It's just a lie. It's just another lie that we've been told since we've been knee-high to the grasshopper that we believe. You got to wake up from these lies. I got to wake up. You got to wake up. If we don't wake up, hey, they'll just keep us slumbering away, and we'll just continue to be slaves to this very unholy system. Putin, Putin is not standing around waiting for the United States to solve things. He has now decided, President Putin has decided that he has to go further and deeper into the Ukraine. They have now, the Russian military has now begun advancing into the Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region, which is in central Ukraine, because President Putin believes he needs a buffer, a greater buffer to protect the Russian speakers in the eastern part of the Ukraine, which was the trigger for the war, because the Ukrainians had been armed by the Biden administration, and they were doing the same thing in the eastern Ukraine that's happening in the Gaza. They just figure, hey, we'll kill everybody, the problem's over. Nobody talks about that genocide. No, it's all Putin, 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 Putin. Let's blame it on one guy. The guys come and go. It's not the guys. It's the military industrial complexes of these countries that need to get fed, and the PhDs that work in the think tanks that think up the next scam. And then we revere these PhDs. Oh, we revere them. I grew up with them. Oh, they're so revered. I'm speaking of these military industrial complex. Here's the 10 states that get the most defense allocation, defense budget spending. Guess what's number one? Texas. Texas gets almost $72 billion a year. That goes from the federal government into Texas companies to produce materials for war. $72 billion a year. That's a lot of money. $72 billion. Okay? The whole economy of Texas is slightly less than $2 trillion. So if you take a look at Texas and you take a look at, $72 billion on $2 trillion, that's a big chunk of Texas's economy. If you pulled that out of there, Texas would fall over because you got all the downstream associated output that supports that defense spending. Virginia, well, that's not a surprise. It's right next to the Emerald City. $68 billion. Oh, California, the leftists. I thought the leftists were anti-war. The ones I grew up with, like my family, they were anti-war. California, Mr. Left, $61 billion a year in defense spending. Florida, the other side of the spectrum, Ron DeSantis's fiefdom. Florida's taking in $32 billion a year on defense spending. Maryland, oh, hey, there's a leftist state, $28 billion. Connecticut, whoa. Connecticut, can't get any more left than Connecticut, $25 billion. Pennsylvania, a swing state allegedly, $21 billion. Arizona, another kind of purplish place, $17 billion. Oh, Massachusetts, Nothing's legal in Massachusetts. They got that state so regulated, you can't get any more leftist than Massachusetts. 16, almost 17 billion. Washington state. Whoa, that's communist central. They're taking in 16 billion a year. You see, this thing is so webbed into our economy and our way of life. How do you function without it? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. How do we get off of this crack? We're crack addicts to kill people. We're crack addicts to kill. That's what we're doing. Now, if you're watching on Royce White's X, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. It's a big audience. It's a growing audience. Really, I'm flattered that Royce White's very intense audience has taken the time to watch Professor Penn podcast. Please, it take you less than a second. Repost the links. Thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, that's where I usually hang out. So if you like uh, the content, you could zip over to YouTube, and I'm generally in the live chat. Although, again, tonight I will not be because I have another engagement. But generally, I participate in the live chats. I'm over on YouTube. We're on Rumble. It's wherever you want to find us. We're going to be there. But when you repost the links, you're supporting what we're doing here. I want to see Royce be a senator. And why do I want him to be a senator? Because he'll tear that place up. And it needs being torn up. When I say torn up, I mean ideologically. I mean searching for truth. Look at what they're spending the money on. I mean, you might be working in a defense plant someplace and participate in this community because there's millions of people that participate in the defense industry. I'll tell you a funny story. When I was a kid, and when I mean a kid, I mean on all fours crawling around, there was a defense contracting plant that employed thousands of people that was right across the alley from the first apartment I lived in. I came to consciousness, dragging myself up so I could look out the picture window of this very, very small apartment. And I knew when people went to work, it was 8 o'clock. And since I was doing that when I was 2 years old, crawling around, I don't need an alarm clock. The plant was called Sperry Univac. It was a defense contractor right here in St. Paul, Minnesota. So it's everywhere. The United States is formalizing its military relationship in Syria with an Al Qaeda linked government. Well, isn't that strange? Doesn't geopolitics breed strange bedfellows? Yes, the United States is going to formalize its military relationship with Syria. And why is that? Because we are contesting with the Russians for influence in that region and with the Iranians, but it's really the Russians and the Chinese. The Iranians are a frontline proxy state, well armed, strongly intended, but they're not running the show. So we're in business down with El Jolani, who is still on our most wanted list with a $10 million bounty on his head. Isn't that funny? The president of the country is still a terrorist. They just didn't update the terrorist list yet. They'll get to it. He'd probably come to the White House soon, hang out, like the Mujahideen did under President Reagan. We've got these goofy, cartoonish visions of how this works. We put Al Qaeda in business. That's right, you and me, our tax dollars. During the Reagan administration, President Reagan had the Afghans in the Oval Office, and they funded the Mujahideen to fight who? The Russians. They had an acronym for them at the time. They called them the Soviets. The names are changed to protect the innocent. It was always the Russians. Always the Russians. Always. Like they call it the MAGA movement. No, it's not. We're Americans. They don't want Americans to realize that the MAGA movement, it's Americans. We're Americans. It's an American movement. It's an American politics. Deal with it. Russia is also active in that region. It was just announced that they agreed to build 8 nuclear reactors in Iran. What? I thought we were trying to denuclearize Iran. See, this is where we're at. We're on the verge of war, allegedly. And if you were on X last night, you could see the drums were pounding that Israel was going to attack Iran. When? Now. Right now. Now. Even President Trump made some cryptic comment about that because we, the people, we are having our non essential personnel withdrawn from the region. And someone asked President Trump, what's going on? And he said, well, you're just going to have to find out. Very Trumpish, right?
Fun.
Right? And I'm on X last night. It looks like, an attack is imminent. I even checked the news before I recorded this because, hey, if I could bring you up to date news, I will. So we're trying to, we, that's you and me, we're trying to force the Iranians to give up both their military and civilian nuclear programs. And the Russians just announced that they're going to build 8 nuclear reactors for the Iranians. Okay, that's what you call looking in the mirror. It's probably true that Israel is trying to drag the United States into a war with Iran. I was saying this before it was fashionable, but it's getting fashionable now. There's a difference between being Jewish and being a Jewish Zionist and being a Zionist. There's three categories. You can just be Jewish, have nothing to do with Zionism. In fact, be opposed to it. You could be a Jewish Zionist or a Christian Zionist, like our ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. He's a Christian Zionist, a category that always confounds my thinking. And then there's just being a Zionist. So there's believing in God and following, and this is another thing. It's one thing to say you believe in God, following his precepts like treat your neighbor like you want to be treated or thou shalt not kill. That's that group. Then there's the Jewish Zionists. So when it comes to killing Arabs, we're going to suspend that particular commandment. But we still believe in God. And we have theological reasons why we're killing. Great. Nice group of guys. And then you got the Zionists that don't need any pretense. They'll just kill you. 3 groups. This was not fashionable to talk about. It's getting more fashionable. I'm noticing, Tanner, are you seeing it, that there's starting to be a discrimination between Jewish people and Zionism? Are you seeing that on TikTok?
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually kind of surprised by it because I didn't even know what Zionism was until this recent wave. So I will say that is a conversation that's happening.
And who's driving it? Is it Jewish people or, well, I mean,
I guess I don't know.
oh,
I visibly on the screen, I see it's someone that looks around my age, so I assume millennials, Gen Zers, but I don't actually know.
people want to maintain their religious or cultural identity without necessarily being a nationalist. Zionism is a nationalism. It's a nationalism. It's a Zionist nationalism. It's like a manifest destiny, which we've criticized here. We have our own kind of Zionist. We have our own kind of Zionism here in the United States. It's called manifest destiny. It's our God-given right to dominate this country from sea to shining sea. And that's been coming up in reference to these riots that are all over because, somebody down in Mexico, some politician said, yeah, we'll build the wall back on the old borders of Mexico 175 years ago or whenever it was when the whole Southwest was Mexico. Well, how did we get that away from them? We fought a war with them and we took it. And so now there's another discrimination about a conquered land. If you conquer it, it's yours. That's manifest destiny. In other words, if I'm strong enough to take it from you, I'm taking it. That's manifest destiny. Doesn't sound very Christian, but they wrapped it in the flag of Christianity. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. A little bit of peaceful things going on with the Chinese. Guess what? The much maligned Howard Lutnick, I'm watching these people run him down like he's a dummy. These leftist hedge fund people, they call him Howard Nutlick, like he's a dummy. And did that trip your trigger?
Yeah, that cracked me up.
Well, they're acting like he's stupid. There's this guy named, I think his name is Spencer Hakimium. He comes through my X feed, and he's very smart, and he's very well spoken, and he's an unrepentant globalist, and he really doesn't know as much as he thinks he does. He's smart. He just thinks he's smarter than he actually is. And he's young and he's running an investment company, so he's trying to get a following. We just want to sell 4 tires. I don't want your investment money. Okay? That's not my thing. I just want to give you 4 tires that you can use at TireGet.com. This guy's on X because he wants all your savings. He wants to make 1% off of all your investments for the rest of your life. See, I'm not into that kind of a thing. That's not my thing. And he's always running these people down like they're stupid. And I'm thinking, Spencer, the only thing you care about is money. And Howard Lutnick is worth $2.5 billion. You barely have any money. So I guess it goes back to the old story. To get at the big boys table, anybody that gets there bluffs their way on. Howard bluffed his way on. He went to the same school I did. He came from nothing, just like me. He did a hell of a lot better financially than I did. And he is he's a stud. And they went over to London, him and Scott Bessent, who's the Treasury Secretary, and they seem to have cut a deal with the Chinese. And the deal is uh, the current 59% tax on China will continue and not be changed. China will tax United States goods 10% to try to get a little bit more balance in the trade. And China has opened up the rare earth export and the magnet export to relieve that very onerous leverage that China had over U.S. industry and the U.S. military. It's progress. I mean, this is not a straight line. I would say right now, if I was going to look at it today, Ukraine, Trump's out. He's going to let them fight it out. Looks like it's an F on the peace process there. It looks like it's an F in the Middle East. But China, it's all looking good. It's all looking good. And I follow it very closely. And in fact, Scott Bessent just yesterday indicated that there's 18 major trading partners. And if they're negotiating in good faith, they could see extending the 10% reciprocal tariff to finish these negotiations, which means things might be settling down. I have so much to get through. I want to comment on this extensively because I'm right in the middle of that. And the stabilization in the economy from the uncertainty really is hampering this year's financial performance for the country. But then again, so is riots. I mean, when all your major cities are having protests, that's not good for business. Hey, you want to go downtown Minneapolis and go shopping today? You're taking your life in your hands, right?
Did you oh, I wanted to ask you about this because I heard this yesterday, and I don't know, maybe you know more about it. Is there a reason that they're closing 94 on this weekend? Is that for the riots, or is
That
it just a
is because
coincidence?
this weekend, I'm glad you told me that
Yeah, because I
because I
heard.
have to drive over to the Minnesota Republican Party State Central Committee meeting, and 94 was my chosen pathway.
Yeah, I
The
I don't
reason
know if it's closed tonight, but I think it's closed tomorrow.
they're closing it, well, it could just be road construction,
Yeah,
but it could be that on this weekend, I think Saturday is the 14th, if I'm correct.
yeah.
Today's the 12th. That's correct. There is a national call to the streets in all the major cities. Saturday could be a day of rage. It could be a day of solemn protest. It could be everybody decides to stay home. President Trump is having his military parade for his birthday on Saturday. You know about the military parade.
I don't.
Well, we're celebrating the anniversary of a military. I don't know the details. One of the military branches is having an anniversary. It happens to fall on President Trump's birthday. So President Trump has decided to have a military parade in Washington, something we don't do here historically in the United States unless we've just won a war. We don't roll 1,000 tanks down the streets of Washington. But actually, this weekend, we are.
Hmm.
We'll have footage of it next Tuesday. Isn't
Well,
that interesting?
yeah, come back Tuesday, we'll cover it,
Yeah,
guys.
we're gonna cover it because so in response to President Trump's military parade, there's going to be a nationwide protest. Ron DeSantis came out yesterday. If he's right, I read it. I don't know if it's true. Had quotations around it. He said if protesters get in your way and you're in a car in Florida, it's legal to run them over. Run them over.
Oof. That's sad, but I mean, at the same time, you put yourself in a road. What are you doing, dude?
I've actually had to do that before.
You've had to just push your way through?
Sometimes you gotta put the pedal to the metal and hope you don't kill anybody. Because if you stop, you're getting drug out of your car.
Yeah.
I've actually been there. I've been there. People go, "Oh, who is this guy?" I've been in some hairy places and in some very dangerous situations in my life. Uh, that's just something that happened.
Do you think that these protests possibly are going to erupt like the George Floyd in Minneapolis?
They already have.
I'm saying I know that, but I'm saying in Minneapolis,
Oh,
do you think
yes.
we're gonna have a part 2?
Oh, yes, I do. It's just building up. And as a matter of fact, how timely, my next article. The Minneapolis Police Department, the officers got a memo this week forbidding them to assist ICE in any immigration enforcement activities. So we got red states and we got blue states. And the blue states, that's why I say we're looking in the mirror. I understand states' rights. Leftists like a federal government. All of a sudden, the leftists are all about states' rights.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a leftist, right, the whole federal bureaucracy was set up after the Civil War to enforce the victor's demand that black slaves were liberated and got the full benefits of their citizenship. And they knew, the Yankees knew that left to their own devices down in the South, they beat the Confederates with the military, but they didn't beat the racism out of them.
Mm.
So the whole bureaucratic system, its impetus was to protect black people who had recently been freed from slavery. And that was the federalization of our governmental bureaucracy. And the leftists, hey, they're all for that centralization of power. But now those same people want states' rights and the right to not participate in the federal government's protecting property lives on this immigration issue. Looking in the mirror. You know, when you get ready for a divorce, when you look in the mirror, you can't make any sense of it anymore. Or at the same time, it makes perfect sense. And the other people on the other side of the looking glass are thinking the same thing you are. It's getting a little bit non coherent.
Mm.
It's getting non coherent.
Well, yeah, because like, and I know that you don't normally like to talk about this topic, so we don't have to go in depth with it, but it was something that always like, this last election, a huge topic was the abortion. And I was someone that I just never understood. I was like, he's trying to put it back to states, and that gives the states rights. And then I talked to so many people that wanted it to be federally, and they would say, well, what about the ladies that are in other states? So, like, I'm in Minnesota and I'm trying to protect the ladies that are in Texas. And so they didn't want the states right. They wanted the federal to step in for that. But when it comes to something where, depending on how you see it from your street corner, if you see these illegal immigrants as a danger to the country, that is when the federal government should be stepping in. Like, that's not left to states' individual devices. Cause, I mean, what if California just started getting funded by a foreign adversary?
You know what? There's a strong allegation today that China's funding the whole thing. I
Yeah.
just haven't researched it yet to talk about it. When people no longer have ideological centers, when they're willing to do anything to accomplish their goals, when we have a breakdown of social cohesion and a breakdown of dialogue, it's getting close to divorce. And we'll see how intense these protests are this weekend. But President Trump's argument is, no, we're not going to let you do this. He federalized the California National Guard, and that's a big deal. Down in Texas, I got a lot of action down in Texas. Uh, they had protests in the streets. That lasted about 5 minutes down there. Governor Abbott nipped that right in the bud. Just said, we're not going to be doing this in Texas. No protest. There's no street protests in Dallas. It's not allowed.
Mm.
You just go out there and crack heads. And then I got all other people telling me, people that I know saying, you know, calling military out's fine. Kill some of these people. Everybody will go home. They'll be afraid.
Yikes.
Yikes. Right?
Yeah.
It's getting a little bit intense. Okay. So we got all this information up front about this AI. And I'm just going to share with you that the build out of the power grid, the build out of data centers and the build out of uh, the power to power these data centers. There's three components. There's the data centers, there's the power, and then there's the electrical grid to move that power. It seems to me to be military in nature. It is not a civilian activity. Permitting has been blown away. This is coming up in 3 years. It's a 3-year plan that President Trump has put into place. And going back to what I said, uh, how this thing is used is completely up to us. If we are passive, if we say, hey, what'll be, will be, what'll be is uh, we're going to be in a digital prison. If we get into the political process and protect our American Republic and our freedom and our God given natural rights, this technology is not inherently good or bad. It's how it's wielded by man. A gun is not inherently good or bad. It's just a hunk of metal. A gun doesn't kill anyone. It has to be wielded by a person that's got the heart that's willing to pull that trigger. So, gun control for someone who, I have an opinion about this. I just do. If we had a culture of life, going back to what you said about abortion, if we had a culture of life, when you suspend your culture of life to protect the Zionist project and you have a genocide and everybody says it's all okay, when you do things like this, you're not living in a culture of life. That makes street violence more possible. If we have a culture of life, a real culture of life, it's not just taking an 18-year-old woman and demonizing her because she's pregnant. That's a symptom. The culture of life starts on how we treat each other. What is our foreign policy? When your government runs a $6 trillion budget and $2 trillion of it goes into military and military research, a third. That's not a culture of life. They call it defense. If it was defense, why are we always at war and why do we have the U.S. military deployed all over the world? Why are we in NATO? Why are we doing what we're doing? And they tell us it's for my good and my defense. Like if we didn't have ships in the South China Sea, China would just instantaneously attack us and take us over. I don't believe that. I think we, the people, are aggressive. We, the people, have inherited the British colonial enterprise. We, the people, are victims of and beneficiaries of the British business model of slavery, drugs, and piracy. And I know there's people in the live chat that are going to say it goes way back before the British. And yes, it does. We can go back to the way back. But let's just talk about the people who we can identify in our collective memory, like Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, Truman, people that are close enough to our current temporal space that we can relate to them. The Phoenicians. Who wants to talk about the Phoenicians? The Babylonians. It's too far back. They had a business model that came forward. Slavery has been part of the human experience since there was humans. It doesn't make it right. Let's talk about that just in a minute. I'm going to have to go through some of this news and not get to it because we're going to run out of time. All right. Let's talk about a little politics. Please play number 2.
I think he should be bringing in economists to talk to him right now about what's happening with the debt and with his big, beautiful betrayal of the middle class.
Stop.
To be talking to him about what.
This is Amy Klobuchar, our senator here in Minnesota. There's never been a debt ceiling increase she hasn't voted for. There's never been a program she hasn't wanted to see fund. She wants guns and butter. Look at her. Look at her. What a hot dish she is. A hot dish. A hot dish. I don't mean by her looks. She just looks like the kind of woman that's going to bring the hot dish.
Yeah.
She's so unobjectionable. She's a neocon, war hawk. She doesn't care anything about the people. She's sold out. And what she's saying is, let's bring in economists to talk to President Trump. You mean PhDs from Columbia? Oh, no. Keep those people out of the White House. Keep them out. Keep these PhDs away from the center of power. Their expertise has generated the disaster I'm living in. Let's continue.
What's going on with the tariffs and how they are hurting small businesses. I think he should be bringing in the people that I talk to every day, regular people, farmers whose markets are drying up.
Stop, please. Everything has a benefit, has a cost. Let's bring in the millions of small businesses that her free trade policy put in the dirt over the last 50 years. Let's hear from those people, the people whose businesses died without a whimper. And I'm going to tell you, not everybody's business is suffering. This tariff policy might save TireGet. It might. It might not. There's a lot of destabilization. But there was no doubt under a free trade architecture that only benefits Amazon, Walmart, Costco, Lowe's, Home Depot, the very biggest companies, there was no small business that was going to survive this regime. It was impossible. It was intended to put small business out. And here she's telling me, yeah, there are small businesses that are suffering. If you're still buying in China and you're watching me, hey, 59%, can you live with it? I don't know if your business can make that work. I don't know. I was at Costco on Monday night. I think it was Monday night. And, you know, I was there with Mrs. Professor Penn walking through the aisles. She likes to shop, and I have to do certain things to keep family peace. So I push the cart and do what I'm told. I don't like going to Costco. I don't like to shop. That's just me. But I'll do it because it's a family deal. It's a responsibility. And we came upon a $9.99 plastic mold to make those square ice cubes at home. You know those big square ice cubes? We didn't have those big square ice cubes.
For the whiskeys?
For the whiskeys,
Yeah.
right. $9.99. I picked up the box. I looked at it. It was made in China. It was $9.99.
Mhm.
So it'd be $15, maybe. I mean, that thing in China probably cost somebody a buck to make. Put the packaging and the shipping on it. Cost for Costco is probably $2. They had it marked up $8. Pretty good profit,
Yeah.
right? Would we have still bought that mold at $15? The person that wants the square ice cube plastic mold, if they want that, how do you even tell what it's worth? It doesn't have a value unless somebody wants it. Somebody's not going to look at that and go, geez, I'm going to go over to Walmart and do some comparative shopping. No, it's an impulse buy as you're going through the aisles.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's 15, 20, 10. Doesn't matter. And it's not essential like your tires that you could buy at TireGet.com. You've got to buy tires. You've got to buy tires. You don't have to have that mold. So what's in China right now, mostly other than electronics and rare earths, mostly is a bunch of stuff we don't need. We want it, but we don't need it. Am I expressing myself in a way that's understandable?
Yeah.
The stuff we really need's been out of China for a decade, except for electronics and for rare earths. The rest, there's no tires coming in this country out of China to speak of. At one time, it was all China for the low-cost tires. Now those factories have moved to Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Serbia, Pakistan, and Mexico. How'd you like to plug that hole? The little Dutch boy needs a lot of fingers and toes to do that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
See, the Chinese are very good at what they're doing. So the important stuff moved. It moved. I don't know that I care about that company that's important, a plastic mold for square ice cubes. I don't know. I personally would never buy it. Made in China. $9, $10. For what? A square ice cube? It just doesn't seem to me to be mission critical. Do you understand? Do you think it's mission critical? Would you have to spend that $10 on a square ice cube mold
I
around
wouldn't
your
have
camp?
to. No.
Could you live without it?
I could live without it, yeah.
Okay. Maybe it's time to start living without some stuff. maybe we're too into this materialism to the extent that it's become ridiculous. Did we finish Amy Klobuchar, or do we have a little bit
We
more
have
to
a little
go?
bit left of her.
Let's listen to the rest of her.
People who are worried about their moms or their grandmas getting kicked out of their assisted living because of his Medicaid cuts. When Josh Hawley calls this morally bereft, that it's immoral to make these Medicaid cuts, and
Stop
when
again.
Elon Musk...
Josh Hawley is a Republican senator from Missouri. I don't remember which Ivy League school he went to. Morally bereft. No, 20% of his constituents are on Medicaid, and it's just about keeping his job in show business. But she's willing to. I would like it much better if she'd say, you know, my future job in show business depends on paying these people because I've got all these people addicted to free services, Medicaid, for example. What was that you called that from your history teacher?
Finstoffel.
And what does that stand for?
There is no such thing as a free lunch.
Not according to Amy Klobuchar.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to pay for this. And we're all, and even the people on the Medicaid and the Medicare. I am that age. You know, my theory about this, and I'm not giving medical advice, I'm not. I just take a walk every day and I don't eat too much. Seems to be working pretty good for me. You know, what happened to that? What happened? See, we gave up self-governance when going to the doctor is free. I'm not giving medical advice, YouTube. I'm just saying there's a cost. There's a cost to going to the doctor all the time. And she's touting this thing as if it's the end of the world, like not having a square mold for a square ice cube. It's very similar to me. She's making it similar. She's talking about it in the same paragraph. Let's keep going.
Comes in and says that this is a disgusting abomination, this bill, and when it is now triggering, get this, Medicare cuts, something that hasn't been discussed yet, because it adds so much to the deficit that rural hospitals are going to get cut. I think that's who we should be listening to right now, instead of his constant effort for shock and awe and trying to distract people what they care about most, which is the economy.
No, first of all, what she's talking about is the riots. The riots started before the police and the National Guard and the Marines got involved. So who's distracting whom from what?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and the other, I think I saw the governor. My buddy had showed me a clip of the governor in LA that was they were blaming Trump for why can't I think of the word? Basically prodding the protesters to do it, amplifying the issues. And
Right.
I just sat there, I was like, is there no self-account? And she was using the word looting too. She wasn't even like saying, oh, these protesters, she was talking about looters. And she was like, it's Trump's fault. And where is the self-accountability? Not able to look at the people in your city to go, what are you guys doing? Like,
Can I tell you something you can't even perceive?
hmm,
When I was 5 years old, 4 years old, my pediatrician, his name was Dr. Steinberg, came to my house. He didn't have an office. He worked out of his house. He took cash on the dash.
you know,
You want to see him? You got to pay. Don't have any money? Maybe he showed up, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But around my household, sometimes my mom, because we didn't have a lot of money, maybe my mom cooked him dinner. He
yeah,
came over, took care of me. You know, we've built a system of dependency instead of interdependency. We've built a system of codependency instead of interdependency. We've given up our self-governance. That's the point of Free People Radio. That's the point of republicanism, that every citizen is sovereign and the king or queen of their own lives. But if you just want free stuff, then you're dependent on somebody else to give it to you. You've given up your kingship and your queenship. And that's the choice, right? It's just that simple. You can paddle your own canoe, or you can take a ride and let somebody else paddle it for you. We are the problem. We, the people, are the problem. It's not these political hacks like Amy Klobuchar. They're a reflection of us. That's why the framers said, You're going to keep this republic as long as you're willing to do the work of self-governance. As soon as you stop doing it, you're going to lose it. And that's where we're at today. That's why this is the mirror image moment. Let's talk about something that really frosts me.
Stop here where the guns are. I want you all to take pictures of these guns and let people know that they're
Stop
in
just
our
for a
city.
second. This is Congresswoman Maxine Waters, federal, much reviled by the conservative movement. She's a firebrand. I'd like you to listen to what Maxine has to say, and then I'm going to comment on it.
With guns, and I'm sure they have orders to shoot and kill. I don't know, but otherwise they wouldn't have guns.
One question, Representative Ms. Waters. If there's one statement that or a message that you can send to Donald Trump, what is that message here today?
My message to Donald Trump is you are a cruel human being, and that you're using the poorest people in the land, the most vulnerable people in the land, to promote your politics. You are wrong. We know what this is all about. We have people who are immigrants here who are trying to seek a better living, who have come from places where they have experienced this kind of thing that he's doing here today. People who work every day, people who are paying taxes, who are raising their families, who are supporting education. They should not be treated this way. They should be given an opportunity to tell their story, whom they are, and why they're here, and ask the United States to please do what the Constitution allows us to do, and that is give them consideration for having citizenship here.
Ms. Maxine Waters, thank you for those words. Another thing, do you find it coincidental that this is happening at this time of the year right now? Is there anything that you can correlate with the timeline that it's happening with right now alongside?
No, I think that the president has not been able to live up to the threat that he used during his campaign, where he was going to get millions of them out of here. And I think it's come to the point where he thinks he's got to show something. But also, his ridiculousness has taken over the armed services to celebrate his birthdays coming up. And people are saying, are you going to spend millions of dollars celebrating your birthday using the armed services to do it? And I think that adds to it. All of this is coming to the forefront now.
And Congresswoman, how should the city of LA and the state of California react to this? What's the smart play here?
All of the elected officials in this city should be on the street. The mayor should be on the street. The city council should be on the street. Everybody should be on the street. All of the state elected officials. All of us in Congress. We're supposed to be in Congress tomorrow, but I want you to know I'm trying to stop him from getting richer and richer on crypto. The more money he has, the more powerful he has, the more he will elect people. So we got a lot of work to do.
So bodies on the street, basically.
Bodies on the street. People on the street. Absolutely.
Ms. Waters, before we let you go, anything that you can say to anybody watching or the public that wants to come out here, or just simply watching, or wants to know anything that you want to tell them that they should do or shouldn't do?
Well, here's what I want to support. I want to support people having a voice. Peaceful protests are okay. They're all right. I want them to know what happened in the civil rights movement, where we got on the street, where we marched, where we fought, and we made the government change, and we got voting rights.
Peacefully.
Peacefully. And so people can protest peacefully. They should come out, and they should have a voice, and they should not allow the intimidation to force them to do nothing. Do something.
Do something.
Something.
Do not let the intimidation force you to do nothing. Do something. Words from Congresswoman here, Maxine Waters. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We heard it.
I can't believe these guns.
I thought the first fundamental part of her argument was that President Trump is using these people to advance his politics. His politics is reactionary. If there was no illegal immigrants here, it wouldn't be an issue.
Plus,
So
I don't understand what would he be gaining getting them out?
President Trump
Yeah.
removing the immigrants. Okay.
What would he benefit? Like, she says that he's using them as if it's not for the reason of like, hey, they're illegal, they shouldn't be here. Then what is the other, like, what is his
Well, what
motive
she's
then?
implying is that he's using xenophobia which is the demonization of the other, the
Mhm.
non-citizen, or another group, to consolidate his political base. He's using hatred of these people to
Mm.
coalesce the MAGA movement.
Okay.
But actually, the census, they count these people in the census. This is the base of Democrat power. And we've been talking about on many, many different um, podcasts over the last month about how this is a business. This is purely business. Follow the money, which was the name of the last podcast. Follow the money. And what she's talking about is these people, oh, they just want to do that. They just want to, we should think about that. They just want to raise their families and support education and support the economy. They're all good. No, they're illegally here. They're in the margins of society. They're exploited for their labor. They're exploited for the government funds that are used to take care of these people, as we talked about the 20 counties in Minnesota that were named as sanctuary counties, that their budgets include $500 million, $140 million just for education alone, to teach these illegal people in our society. They were brought here. They didn't show up by accident. If it happens in politics, it happens for a reason. You don't get a mass migration of 10 million people across an open border by accident. You know, the border is open and closed by political will. The Jews tried to get in here to avoid the Nazis, and they sent them back to die in the gas chambers. So these borders were opened. These people were driven here. They were used as political capital, as human inventory. And then to listen to Maxine Waters talk about these people in this way, and these people are modern day economic slaves. I don't know how else to say it. They're not chattel slaves. They get something, but they have no hope of advancement, and they're at the very low end of getting paid. And it brought to mind some other people and things that they had said that I've read before in my life, and I want to read this into the record because, this is Maxine Waters talking about these people as if them being here is good for them and good for the country. But mostly it's good for them. They're just trying to get educated. Listen to this. John C. Calhoun, a quote, never before, these are all Democrats I'm going to be reading from here now. These are the Democrats, just like Maxine Waters, the same party, the Democrat Party. John C. Calhoun, never before has the black race of Central Africa, from the dawn of history to the present day, attained a condition so civilized and so improved, not only physically, but morally and intellectually. It came to us in a low, degraded condition, and under our institution of slavery, black people have been raised to a state of comparative civilization. Remember we used to have Lake Calhoun in Minneapolis?
Yeah.
What do they call it now?
I can't pronounce it.
I can't either. That's the problem. If you can't pronounce it, that name's not going to stick.
Yeah.
But we used to have Lake Calhoun. They changed it because this was a guy, and he's a Democrat. The people that changed it were Democrats. It's their people. These people are just being treated in a modern version of, listen to another one. We all know the name Robert E. Lee, right? Confederate general,
Okay.
right? Quote, the blacks are immeasurably better off here than they were in Africa, morally, socially, and physically. The painful discipline they are undergoing is necessary for their instruction as a race, and I hope will prepare and lead them to better things.
I'm seeing the connection that you're trying to paint out here now. This is
Good.
crazy.
Well, this is not a new movie.
Yeah.
This is a sequel to the last time we had slaves here. Oh, here's Jefferson Davis. He was the first Democratic president of the Confederacy in 1861. His quote, African slavery, as it exists in the southern states, that would be the Democrat states, is a blessing to the slave himself, who is thereby brought into contact with a superior race and placed under the humanizing influences of Christian civilization.
Holy man.
Isn't it kind of the same thing in its own kind of weird, twisted way?
Yeah.
I got one more for you. These kind of people they don't, like I said, it's not the people, it's the chair. The chair never went away. The people come and go and live and die, but the ideology, the ideas. That's why I say if you love Trump, I'm all for it. I'm into the ideas, changing the ideas. Quote, here's William Harper, a South Carolinian, a politician and a jurist. He was a lawyer. South Carolina, where we have Lindsey Graham holding court. Quote, the African is better off here than in his native land. He is brought under the influence of civilization and Christianity. His condition as a slave is far preferable to that of a savage in Africa.
And is this stuff that they said? Well, I guess we can't ask them, but like, did they actually believe this, or were they saying it to kind of like convince the citizens that we were doing the right thing?
Spectrum.
Mm.
That's a spectrum of from pure manipulation to pure crazy.
Yeah.
So this is the modern day version of this. We watched Maxine Waters so eloquently speak about these people when it was the Democrat Party that brought them here, opened the border, used them, our and we're not even getting into the census issues, the government budget issues, the Social Security issues. I mean, these people are being exploited. They're being exploited in every possible way. They're modern day slaves living right in our society. And they're being monetized and they're being talked about in that exact same way, only upgraded because, we can't be too obvious about it now. We've had some scholarship over the last 150 years. So, but it's the same thing. It's the same ideas. And why is that? Well, because it's outflanking. We talked about outflanking. We talked about this with Alex Plekish sending out this letter, quoting the Bible. Man, I think if this guy could have, if he had the ink and the time, he'd quote the whole Bible and say that's the Republican Party. Because, the MAGA movement is being accused of being white Christo nationalists, even though there's lots of blacks and Asians and Jews that are involved. But hey, who's counting those people? And the establishment, which is thoroughly atheistic, scientific, and jingoistic. That's who they are. Like the Lindsey Grahams. You can say you believe in God, but do you actually do what God tells you to do? There's a difference, okay? And the core of the party is still sold into this post-World War II Democrat liberal order. When I say the core of the party, I mean until we citizens get involved in the party and turf these people out, they're just going to self-perpetuate the post-World War II Democrat liberal order. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think they're very bright, a lot of them. It's not about honesty. It's not about self-reflection. They got a dog bowl. They want to keep it filled. And the post-World War II Democrat liberal order is keeping it filled for them. So why would they want to change that? Why would they want to get their jackboot off of your neck? They're not going to unless you remove it by joining the party. Caucus Counter-Attack. Go to roycewhite.us, put your name in there if you're in Minnesota, and we can change this and get real citizens with humble ambitions and loving hearts involved in the party and remove these people. And I don't mean violently, I mean with the political process that the framers gave us through dialogue and through action. See, that's the problem. It takes work. But this outflanking, when the party starts going full-blown Christian, or they're trying to have a baseball game with patriots and rhinos, what they're trying to do is usurp and outflank the Trump movement because they know Trump's coming to an end. And at the end, they want to be large and in charge and maintain what they've got, which here in Minnesota is not very much. But actually, because of the efforts of people who are being strident and militant in their critique of the party is doing a better job because they're afraid of their constituents. And that is how it's supposed to be. If you're in Minnesota, we just finished a special session. You could say it was a disaster. You could say it wasn't a disaster. But I'm going to tell you, it could have been a whole lot worse. And the reason it was the way it was, which was far from optimal, But as good as it was because these people are afraid to go home to an ever increasing cohort of radicalized constituents that are mad as hell and aren't going to take this anymore. They don't want Republicans that continue to support the post-World War II Democrat liberal order because what's from your history teacher? What's that called?
There's no such thing as a free lunch. Tin Stoffel.
Tin Stoffel. It's not a very nice sounding word.
No, it doesn't sound.
But
Yeah.
there's no such thing as a free lunch. That was quite wonderful of your history teacher to tell that every benefit has a cost. And what happens with the outflanking is we get outflanked. They start spouting the Bible at us, and we think, oh, it's the Bible, it's the Bible. These people must believe in God. You know, like Jewish people that are Zionists. Bible, Bible, Bible. But let's kill all the Iranians. You know, these kind of people outflank faith, and they subsume that movement. This movement is on the outside of the Uniparty. It surrounds the Uniparty on left and right. The left side, there's the left-wing populists. The right side has the right-wing populists. And in the center is that Uniparty. And they're moving on both sides. They're outflanking. David Hogg, who was famous because of one of the school shootings, he survived it.
Oh, yep.
He was elected to the DNC, the Democrat National Committee leadership. They just threw him out because he was doing the same thing on the left that the Trump movement is doing on the right. He was trying to get rid of these sellouts. And they threw him out. They just threw him out. They threw me out of the party for all intents and purposes. This is the way it goes. He's not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. But let me tell you what the danger is. You outflank these people, then they outflank you. There's some kind of outcome. And there's a group of people that go to Congress. And that $7 million per seat per year continues. So it really doesn't matter as long as that money is flowing in there and buying that influence. We got to get that money and cut it off. You see these people go to Congress, they got net worths of $150,000. 6 years later, they're worth $20 million. They didn't steal it. They just know what legislation is going to do what in the stock market, and they put their money into the stocks that they know are going to go up because they're creating the conditions to make them go up. It's legal. This has to stop. Public service is a sacred act. It's turned into the most profane of acts. Being a priest is sacred. It became profane. Child sexual abuse in the priesthood. They made the priesthood profane. Why? Because all of us have good and evil inside of us, and it takes a lot of effort of self-governance to root out that evil, to raise that hell, and truly to become a good person, to pick up your cross and bear it. It's just words until you do it. When you do it, you know what it is. Until you've done it, till you've walked that mile carrying that cross, it's just words on the page. But if we all don't do it now, freedom is going to be a short-lived thing. All these examples of outflanking. The Trump movement was outflanking. And I'll tell you, one of the places where the evil is most focused is at the universities. And here in Minnesota, that beast is wounded. They're raising tuition. Their income is cut. There's a decline in state funding. There's reductions that President Trump is bringing in federal research funding, which supports the university. There's inflation and rising costs. Enrollment is down because people are figuring out that education doesn't do much for your future job prospects. And, you know, what I would like is our local elected leadership to please get their arms around the university. You know, the special session was better than what would have happened if we weren't paying attention to politics here in Minnesota or in your state too, if you're doing the job. But the critical one, the election of what's called the university regents that run the university, it's supposed to be done democratically in that legislative session. Oh, they didn't get to it. So guess what? Governor Walz, leftist extraordinaire, gets to appoint the people that are going to govern the operation of the university. So they had all this diversion over here, but the most important thing, the pump of the evil, It's completely without oversight. Please, my elected Republican officials, grow a pair and go after these people. President Trump's showing you how to do it. Do it. I know you're afraid here. I know. You're afraid you won't get elected because your constituents love the university. You're a sellout, is what you are, because you're not protecting republicanism. There's no republicanism at the University of Minnesota. None. Zero. Why don't you get some oversight on that? Why did you let these regents be appointed instead of you electing them? You see, diversion. And to this, I have to say directly, Jake Duesenberg, who has got the Truth Hurts podcast and Action for Liberty, they've been very active in this, and they're very critical about how this special session turned out. I'm less critical in some financial areas. Could have been way worse. Still wasn't great. Government has been expanded. They didn't shrink the government down back to the pre-COVID levels. Could have been worse. They could have expanded it. But when it comes to this regent issue, and Jake, if you're listening to me, let's go after the head of the snake. Let's not be chasing symptoms. Let's go after the core issue. Who's teaching our children, and what are they teaching them is why this state is the way it is. And then you end up with, complicated issues like Alpha News, a competitor of Free People Radio, a competitor of The Truth Hurts, Action for Liberty. Alpha News probably wouldn't see me as a competitor because they're arrogant. They would like to see themselves competing with the mainstream media. And yes, they are. That's who they are. The rap on these people, and there was an article in the Star Tribune by a noted civil rights lawyer and activist deriding Alpha News for its, and this is about Liz Collins, the focus on the fall of Minneapolis and the miscarriage of justice that they allege surrounded the conviction of Derek Chauvin as an aftermath of the George Floyd incident. I don't want to comment on that. I watch Alpha News's feed, and I'm in the Republican Party in the western suburbs of Minneapolis and St. Paul. A lot of old white people like me. The future of political success for the Republican Party in Minnesota is in Minneapolis and St. Paul. There's hundreds of thousands of voters there that haven't heard from the Republican Party in decades. That ground has been seeded, and there's no long-term success without rekindling republicanism in the city. And let us remember that it was the Republicans that freed the slaves, and for decades after the Civil War, that community was as Republican then as it is Democrat now. I watch Alpha News put up mugshots of criminals who happen to be black, constantly stoking the fear and division between the outstate community and the inner city. I think it's awful. And I'm going to ask Alpha News to quit doing it. There's plenty of white criminals, plenty of them. They're everywhere. I've never, now if you've done it, put them up, send them to me. But I have never seen coming through my news feed from Alpha News the picture of a mugshot of a white murderer or a white robber. I've never seen it. It's always black, 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 black. I don't think that's an accident. So, while I probably would not agree in sum total with this civil rights attorney that wrote this column in the Minneapolis Star Tribune, her criticism of Alpha News, I didn't want to get into the inner workings of the criticism because I'm not going to comment on the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin thing. I'm commenting on racism, the racism that is inherent in the Republican Party, that I have been a victim of, that I know exists, that has been put right in my face by Republican Party officers, talking and acting in ways that are not in harmony with our political movement, which is about our Constitution and protecting the rights of minorities. I don't mean minorities in terms of color. I mean ideologically, people that have different thinking than we do. It's got to change. And it's an ongoing problem. And it is obvious to me in the reaction to Royce White that there is tremendous racism in the party. And let's see how Kendall Qualls fares. He's running for governor. He's lost twice. I don't know if it's for the same reason. But we have citizens in this state that are ignored by the Republican Party at best, or at worst, they are demonized. I'm not talking about illegal immigrants. I'm talking about American citizens demonized because they hold different political views and support a different political philosophy than I do, but no effort is being made to talk to them and to share to them and to educate them on what republicanism is and what it can do and what self-governance is all about. No effort. So I'm going to this state central committee, and that's going to be my mission this weekend, to keep talking about the importance of having a statewide party for all the citizens of the state, because the time has come to heal these wounds, because we're looking into the mirror and we're getting close to the kind of divorce and chaos that will not create a society that is well-being for my children and for your children. On that note, I look forward to reporting to you next week about State Central. I want to thank you to be here. At the end, please repost the links. Freepeople.com. Go to the store. TireGet.com. Put your comments in the YouTube chat. Hit the like button. Help us build this community. And thank you for being with me tonight. Tanner?
Have a good one, everybody.